Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the NFL Power Ranking Show. Today, we are ranking the final 8 teams going into Week 2 of the playoffs. And at number 8, we have the Rams. I put the Rams, I guess, last, but all these teams are good teams. And I think that the Rams are a good team. They're a complete team. They have a really solid defense, a really solid special teams. I really like the coach. But the offense just, I don't think works enough. I think it worked up for a beaten up Seattle team, and they were able to do enough, but I really don't see them beating the Packers. I don't know. I just think that while they're good and they have a really complete team and a really solid team, the offense just isn't enough. Goff isn't enough. Broken thumb or not broken thumb, I just don't see many ways that the Rams win this game against the Packers in this coming weekend. And so I have the Browns right above them. And the Browns are a good team. I felt like all these other teams were better. The Browns, they just beat the Steelers, got off to a hell of a start this week, and then kind of almost lost it, which made me question stuff. To get up to a 28-0 lead and have it end up being kind of close, they always had control. They definitely always had control. And they had COVID issues, and the coach wasn't there. But to get up to that much of a lead and to even give the other team a chance of coming back in the second half just didn't quite work for me. I really like this team, and I really like that they made the playoffs. I don't like the idea of a team not making the playoffs for 20 years, or I guess 18 years. So I'm really happy with that. But I think that the Chiefs beat them. They're explosive, but they're not explosive enough that their defense can cover for them, and I think their defense is too much of a problem. They have a good line, but I think their secondary just doesn't quite work for me. And so I have the Buccaneers right above them. The Buccaneers beat the football team this week, which ended up being a bit of a closer game than I think most of us thought. I think, at least me personally, I know that Washington has a good defense, but I thought that the Buccaneers would be able to just completely run away with it, and they kind of stayed in the game, which I don't think is a bad thing against the Buccaneers. I think it was just football team, they just went for it, which I like that. No one had hope in them. I didn't have hope in them, and they just went for it. That's just awesome. And this team's really good. Brady and Brown have been really clicking. The defense is pretty good, and they have a lot of momentum right now, I feel like. Next week, they're going against the Saints, which I think is going to be a good grudge match, which I think the Saints will win, but I think it'll be close. But this is just a really good team, and with just a couple small little things, like a couple things that they can be sloppy on, I think they are in contention for the Super Bowl. I mean, all these teams are, obviously, but I think they're one of the top contenders for the NFC. But I have the Ravens right above them. It was a good win against the Titans today. The Titans got up early, and we all kind of say, oh, well, the Ravens are not a come-from-behind team, but they totally came from behind. They really proved us all wrong. They proved us wrong that Lamar can't win a playoff game, and they just played super solidly. Well, kind of. I mean, Lamar played really well. The rest of the team was just okay. The defense really did its job when it had to, though. When the Ravens started having some momentum and coming back in the game, the defense really stepped up and just totally stopped the Titans from getting anything done. And my favorite part was, and I'll do a segment about this later, was how they were totally able to contain Derrick Henry, and it just made the Titans fall apart, just totally outcoaching them, totally outsmarting them. It was a great game. The Ravens played great, and I think it'll be an interesting game with the Bills next week. That's my favorite game, and I think that it's going to be closer than we think, but I do think the Bills will come away with it, but that's just because the Bills have a little bit more going for them right now than the Ravens, and the Ravens just have a couple key things working for them, but not enough that I think they'll go to the Super Bowl and beat a Bills or maybe a Chiefs after. And so I have the Saints above them, and it's just bizarre to me because I watch these whole games, and I'm like, man, they don't look great, but they just win these games, and they kind of win them by a lot. And, they beat the Bears this week. Anyone could have beat the Bears. Football team probably could have beat the Bears. But they just kind of get it done. And I think it's really just a defensive story and a coaching story because I feel like they don't have enough, like they're almost the most boring playoff team right now, but they win game. They're super just solid. I guess that's the best word I could say for it. They are just solid. They are probably the most complete team right now, like, because they do have a good offense, and Breeze looked pretty good today, and the receivers looked good. I'm glad Michael Thomas finally getting back into it after a weird year of just seeing pretty much nothing from him. But I have the Chiefs above them. The Chiefs are on a bye this week, so them and the Packers, they're a little bit hard to exactly pace, but I'm keeping them at number 3. I think that they are going to play very well. I think they are going to beat the Browns and go to the AFC Championship game, which I think they totally deserve to. And they're a really good team. The only reason I don't have them higher is just how close all these games end up being with them. And I've said this in weeks past, but it just, like having a game against the Falcons like a couple weeks ago where they only won by like a couple points and it was with a comeback, that's never where you really want to be when you're going into the playoffs. So I feel like they don't actually have that much momentum going in. Like they won these games, but it feels like they won them by a little bit. And I do think that the Bills will beat them. And so I have the Packers above them. Again, it's hard to place because they had the bye, but they had the bye because they're the best team in the division. But I think the Packers totally rolling, totally had a ton of momentum going into the playoffs. I think that, like I said before, they will beat the Rams this week, and I think it pretty much won't even be close. This team just has a lot going well for it. The defense is getting better, which was definitely a complaint of last year and even the beginning of the season. The coach has been really good. The offense is really the main story, though. Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones have just been moving. But I have the Bills at number 1, and I thought about moving them lower, actually, just because of how the game went this week. Because, like, you know, they won. But it was a super back-and-forth game when I personally thought that it was going to be a Bills blowout, kind of like the week before with the Dolphins. But the Colts really stayed in it more than I thought they would, which made me think, maybe the Bills aren't this like super explosive team. Maybe they can beat these like good teams, but not great teams. But I think it was more that the Colts defense is really, really solid. But then the Bills were still able to win the game and still put up a bunch of points. So I have them at number 1. I think that they will win the Super Bowl. I think it will be them and the Packers. And I think that they'll be able to come away with the win. I think that Josh Allen has been incredible. Stephon Diggs. The coaching's been great. The defense has been good, but could be better, which is why I thought about putting them down. But I just think that this team has the most momentum right now, and I think that they will win the Super Bowl. Thank you, everyone, so much for watching, and subscribe.